Dr. Nathan Carter sits handcuffed in the rear of a packed plane, blood oozing from a split lip, as passengers gawk and whisper. Hours ago, he boarded Horizon Airways red-eye from Los Angeles to New York, expecting a smooth first-class ride, until a flight attendant's rash call flipped everything into chaos. What began as a seat mix-up erupted into violence, exposing vicious racism and threatening his empire. Shockingly, he owns the airline, and this moment could destroy it all. How did it spiral so far? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. And if you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe for more gripping tales. Dr. Nathan Carter stepped onto Horizon Airways red-eye flight from Los Angeles to New York, his polished gray suit hugging his broad shoulders, a stark contrast to the exhaustion etched into his 42-year-old face. 16 hours of surgery had left his hands steady, but his body weary, yet he moved with a quiet dignity that turned heads. His leather medical bag hung over one shoulder, its weight a familiar comfort, while his other hand clutched a first-class boarding pass, crisp and creased from his pocket. The plane buzzed with late-night travelers, a mix of bleary-eyed business types and restless families, their chatter a low hum beneath the soft whine of the engines warming up outside. Nathan navigated the narrow aisle, his polished shoes clicking faintly against the carpet, his sharp brown eyes scanning for his seat. He'd flown this route a dozen times, always in the plush front cabin, a small reward for the lives he saved daily. Tonight felt no different, at least not yet. He reached row 3, seat A, a wide leather throne by the window, and slid his bag into the overhead bin with a practiced ease. The compartment clicked shut, and he offered a polite nod to the older woman in seat B, her silver hair glinting under the dim cabin lights. She smiled back, clutching a paperback, her fingers trembling slightly from age or nerves. Nathan settled into his seat, the cushions sinking beneath his 6-foot frame, and exhaled, letting the tension of the day seep out. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a slim notebook and a pen, its silver cap glinting as he flipped to a blank page. His mind shifted to work mode, jotting notes about a patient's tricky bypass from earlier, the kind of puzzle that kept him sharp. The plane rocked gently as more passengers shuffled aboard, their voices a dull roar, but Nathan stayed focused, his pen scratching steadily, his posture straight as a rod. Across the cabin, Karen Reynolds watched him from her post near the galley, her sharp blue eyes narrowing. At 38, she was a senior flight attendant with a decade of flights under her belt, her blonde hair pulled into a tight bun that matched her pinched smile. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed over her Navy uniform, her gaze locking onto Nathan the moment he'd stepped aboard. Something about him prickled her senses, a gut twist she couldn't name but trusted, implicitly. His suit was too neat, his stride too sure, his presence too polished for her liking. She'd seen plenty of first-class passengers, the entitled elites with their designer bags and loud demands, but Nathan didn't fit her mold. He was black for one, and that alone set her teeth on edge, a reflex she'd never admit aloud but felt deep in her bones. Her job was control, order, keeping the cabin in line, and this man, with his quiet confidence, felt like a glitch in her system. Karen adjusted her scarf, her heels clicking as she strode down the aisle, her eyes never leaving Nathan. She passed a harried mother wrestling a toddler, a businessman barking into his phone, but her focus stayed razor-sharp. She stopped at row 3, her shadow falling over Nathan's notebook. He glanced up, his pen pausing mid-word, meeting her stare with a calm that only fueled her unease. "Boarding pass," she said, her voice clipped, polite but edged with something colder. Nathan blinked, caught off guard, then reached into his jacket, pulling out the slip of paper without a word. He handed it over, his fingers steady, his expression neutral. Karen snatched it, her manicured nails brushing the edge, and scanned it under the overhead light. "Dr. Nathan Carter, 3A. It read clear as day, the first-class stamp bold in black ink. She frowned, her lips pursing, and flicked her eyes back to him, searching his face for something to latch onto. "This is for first class," she said, her tone flat, but laced with a suspicion she didn't bother hiding. Nathan nodded, his voice smooth as glass. "Yes, that's correct." He held her gaze unflinching, his hands resting lightly on his knees, Karen handed the pass back, her fingers lingering as if reluctant to let it go, but she didn't move. She stood there rooted, her mind churning. The ticket checked out, the seat matched, yet that gnawing feeling wouldn't quit. He didn't look like he belonged here, not to her. First class was for the loudmouth CEOs, the Botoxed socialites, not this quiet black man with his medical bag and steady eyes. She'd seen his type before, she told herself, trying to sneak into places they didn't fit, and she wasn't about to let it slide. Just checking, she muttered, forcing a thin smile, then turned on her heel, her step sharp as she retreated. Nathan watched her go, a faint crease forming on his brow, sensing the hostility but chalking it up to a bad day. He'd dealt with worse. Back at the galley, Karen poured coffee for the crew, her hands moving on autopilot while her mind stayed on Nathan. She replayed his nod, his calm, the way he'd settled into that seat like he owned it. It grated on her, a splinter she couldn't dig out. She'd worked too hard, climbed too far to let some guy throw off her rhythm. The plane's doors sealed with a thud, the captain's voice crackling over the intercom about a smooth flight ahead, but Karen barely heard it. She glanced at her coworker, Mike, a lanky kid barely out of training, and jerked her chin toward first class. "Keep an eye on 3A, she said, her voice low. Mike shrugged, oblivious, but nodded anyway. Karen's gut told her something was off, and she trusted it more than any ticket stub. The plane taxied, the engines roaring as it lifted off, climbing into the night sky. Nathan leaned back, the city lights shrinking below, his notebook open again. He scribbled a few more lines, then tucked it away, letting his eyes drift shut. He'd report this to Horizon's HR later, a minor annoyance not worth his energy now. Sleep tugged at him, a rare chance to recharge before rounds tomorrow. But 20 minutes in, the seatbelt sign blinked off, and Karen was back, her heels clicking louder this time. She stopped at his row, her arms folded, her face a mask of barely veiled contempt. "Sir," she said, the words sharp as a blade. "There's been a glitch in the system. This seat's double booked. You'll need to move to economy." Nathan's eyes snapped open, surprise flickering across his face. He sat up, his voice still even. "I booked this weeks ago. I've got the confirmation right here." He pulled out his phone, swiping to the email, the first-class reservation glowing on the screen. Karen glanced at it, her jaw tightening, but she didn't budge. "Doesn't matter. System says otherwise. Move, or we'll have a problem." Her tone was final, her stance rigid, daring him to push back. Nathan's chest tightened, the first spark of anger flaring, but he kept it caged. He knew this game, had played it too many times growing up in South LA, where assumptions like hers were a daily grind. "Check again," he said, firm but calm, holding out the phone. Karen didn't take it. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a hiss. "I don't need to. You're moving. Now." The older woman next to Nathan shifted uncomfortably, her book lowering while a guy across the aisle, a slick-haired exec in a pinstripe suit, smirked and muttered. "Should have known." Nathan's jaw clenched, the air thickening with eyes and whispers. He could fight this, demand the captain, but the plane was airborne, and he was trapped in her domain. Karen's stare bored into him, unyielding, her power flexing like a muscle. He weighed his options, the cost of escalation, then stood, grabbing his bag with a slow, deliberate motion. "Fine," he said, his voice low, cutting. "But this isn't over." He walked to economy, 30 rows back, his broad frame squeezing into a middle seat between a snoring trucker and a fidgeting teen with earbuds. The space was tight, the air stale, his knees jammed against the tray table. Karen followed, her smirk faint but unmistakable, watching him settle in like a hunter eyeing prey. Passengers craned their necks, some muttering about troublemakers, others filming with shaky phones. Nathan's hands balled into fists, his burned pride simmering, but he kept his face stone cold. He'd won this round by staying on the plane, he told himself, a small victory against her petty power trip. He leaned back, closing his eyes, plotting his next move. A formal complaint when they landed, maybe a call to his board contacts. He didn't know Karen's name yet, but he'd find out. For now he'd endure, certain this was the worst of it. He was wrong. The cabin lights dimmed, the flight stretching into the night. But Karen's shadow lingered in his mind, a warning he couldn't shake. She stood at the front, her arms crossed, her eyes flicking back to him every few minutes, a predator sizing up her mark. Nathan didn't see it, didn't hear her quiet call to the air marshal stowing his gear nearby, didn't catch the nod she gave Mike as the plane leveled off at 35,000 feet. He thought he'd dodge the bullet, that her spite would fizzle out in the dark. But Karen wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She'd just begun to tighten the noose, and Nathan, brilliant surgeon and secret titan, was about to learn how deep her venom ran. Dr. Nathan Carter sat wedged in his cramped economy seat, the stale air of the Horizon Airways red-eye flight from Los Angeles to New York pressing against his lungs. His gray suit, once crisp, now clung to him, wrinkled from the tight space, between the snoring trucker on his left and the twitchy teen blasting music on his right. The burn of humiliation still seared his chest, Karen Reynolds' icy command to move echoing in his skull. He flexed his fingers, the joints stiff from gripping his medical bag, now stowed beneath the seat ahead, its leather scuffed from the shuffle. The cabin hummed with the low drone of engines, 35,000 feet above the earth, a metal cage where Karen's smirk still haunted him. He'd kept his cool, swallowed her venom, but the sting lingered, sharp as a scalpel. What kind of person wielded power like that over a valid ticket? He shook his head, forcing his mind to strategize. A complaint to Horizon's HR would sort this out once they landed. For now, he'd endure. The lights dimmed, casting long shadows across the rows, and Nathan leaned back, his broad shoulders brushing the trucker's flannel arm. Sleep tugged at him, a fleeting escape from the day's grind, 16 hours of surgery still heavy in his bones. But peace shattered when Karen's heels clicked down the aisle again, deliberate, predatory. She stopped a few rows ahead, her silhouette stark against the faint glow of a reading light, her bun glinting like a crown of thorns. She carried a tray of coffee cups, her movements stiff, her eyes darting to Nathan with a flicker of something dark. He caught it, that glint of intent, and his gut twisted. Was she coming for round two? He straightened, his sharp brown eyes tracking her, every nerve on edge. Karen reached his row, her tray tilting slightly, and paused, her lips curling into a thin, brittle smile. "Coffee?" she asked, her voice syrupy, fake as the plastic cup she held. Nathan raised a hand, declining with a curt, "No thanks." He wasn't about to play her game, not after she'd already flexed her claws. But Karen didn't move. She hovered, her gaze boring into him, a silent dare. Then, with a flick of her wrist, the tray jolted, and a cup of scalding coffee tipped, splashing across Nathan's lap. The heat seared through his pants, blistering his thigh, and he jolted upright, biting back a curse as pain flared. "Oops," Karen chirped, her tone dripping with mockery. "My mistake." She stepped back, her smirk widening, watching him flinch as the liquid soaked in, the burn spreading like wildfire. Nathan's hands shook, adrenaline surging as he grabbed a napkin from the tray table, dabbing at the mess. The trucker snorted awake, grumbling, "Watch it, man," while the teen yanked out an earbud, gawking. Passengers twisted in their seats, necks craning, whispers rippling like a tide. "Clumsy idiot," someone muttered. "Shouldn't be here anyway," another hissed. Nathan's jaw clenched, his pulse hammering. This wasn't an accident. Her oops was a taunt, a jab meant to wound deeper than the heat blistering his skin. Why was she targeting him like this? He met her eyes, steady despite the sting, and saw triumph flash in hers. "You need to be more careful," he said, his voice low, cutting through the cabin's hum, a warning wrapped in calm. Karen's smirk faltered for a split second, then hardened. "I'd say you're the one who needs to watch it," she snapped, turning on her heel and striding back. To the galley, her tray clattering as she went. Nathan wiped his leg, the napkin soaking through, his mind racing. This was personal now, a vendetta he hadn't signed up for. He'd humiliated her by staying composed, refusing to bow, and she'd retaliated with a cheap shot. His hand throbbed, red and raw where the coffee had splashed, a physical mark of her spite, He needed to act, to call her out. But mid-flight, options were slim. He glanced around, catching the stares, the smirks, the phones angled his way. Evidence, maybe. He'd use it later. The plane droned on, the night stretching thin, and Nathan settled back, his burned thigh pulsing with every shift. He closed his eyes, plotting. A quiet word with her supervisor when they landed. A formal report, maybe even a lawsuit if it came to that. He'd won this round by not snapping, by keeping his dignity intact. She'd overplayed her hand, and he'd make her pay. But the calm shattered when Karen's voice crackled over the intercom 15 minutes later, crisp and cold. "Attention, passengers. We've got a situation in economy. Remain seated." Nathan's eyes snapped open, his heart lurching. What now? Footsteps thudded down the aisle, heavy and fast, and a hulking figure loomed into view. Tom Hayes, the air marshal, 6'4" with a buzz cut and a jaw like concrete, stopped at Nathan's row, his meaty hand resting on the taser holstered at his hip. His gray eyes locked onto Nathan, hard and unblinking. "You," he barked, his voice gravelly. "Up. Now." Nathan blinked, confusion spiking. "What's this about?" he asked, keeping his tone even, though his pulse kicked. "Up." Karen appeared behind Tom, her arms crossed, her face a mask of feigned concern. "He's been aggressive," she said, loud enough for the cabin to hear. "Threatened me after I asked him to move earlier. I don't feel safe." Nathan's mouth went dry, disbelief crashing over him. Aggressive, threatened. He'd barely spoken, hadn't raised his voice once. "That's a lie," he said, firm, rising slowly, his bag still at his feet. "I've been sitting here minding my own business." Tom smirked, a crooked twist of his lips. "Doesn't look like it to me, pal. She says you're trouble, and I believe her. Move it or I drag you." Passengers murmured, some nodding, others filming, their phones glinting like vulture eyes. The trucker shifted away, muttering. Knew he was a problem. While the teen shrank back, wide-eyed, Nathan's chest tightened, the weight of their stares crushing. This wasn't just Karen now. It was the system flexing, her word against his, and he was losing. "I'm a doctor," Nathan said, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling, inside. "I've got a valid first-class ticket. She spilled coffee on me, not the other way around." He pointed to his soaked pants, the red welt on his hand, but Tom didn't flinch. "Save it," he growled, stepping closer, his bulk filling the aisle. "You're coming with me, or this gets ugly." Karen nodded, her eyes glinting with victory, a puppet master pulling strings. Nathan scanned the cabin, searching for an ally, but found only hostility or indifference. He grabbed his bag, his knuckles white, and followed Tom toward the rear, each step a drumbeat of dread. He'd stayed calm, thought he'd outmaneuvered her, but she'd doubled down, weaponizing lies and muscle. Tom shoved him into a jump seat, near the galley, a hard metal perch with no cushion, and loomed over him, taser still in hand. "Stay put," he said, his breath hot with coffee and tobacco. "One move, and you're done." Karen lingered nearby, her smirk back, a silent gloat. Nathan's burned hand throbbed, his lap still damp, his pride in tatters. He'd assumed moving to economy would end it, that he'd won by not escalating. But Karen wasn't playing fair. She'd painted him as a threat, turned the cabin against him, and now he was pinned, a target in her crosshairs. What kind of power did she have to pull this off? He sat rigid, his mind racing, plotting his next move as the plane soared through the night, a prisoner in a trap he hadn't seen coming. "Hey folks, what do you think about this?" Comment number 1 if you're raging at Karen's blatant racism, or number 2 if you think Nathan should have fought harder from the jump. Hit that like button if you're hooked on this wild ride, and smash subscribe to catch every twist coming your way. Was Nathan too calm, letting her walk all over him? Or is his cool head his secret weapon? And what's Karen cooking? Up next with that air marshal in her pocket? Stick around to find out how this spiral gets even crazier. Dr. Nathan Carter sat rigid in the jump seat at the rear of Horizon Airways' red-eye flight from Los Angeles to New York, the hard metal digging into his spine. His gray suit was damp with coffee, the burn on his thigh pulsing with every shallow breath. A cruel reminder of Karen Reynolds' earlier attack. The cabin's low hum vibrated through the walls, 35,000 feet of night sky trapping him in this nightmare. His wrists ached where Tom Hayes, the air marshal, had shoved him down, the threat of the taser still hanging in the air like smoke. Karen stood a few feet away, her navy uniform crisp despite the hour, her blonde bun glinting under the galley's harsh light. She watched him, her thin lips twitching with satisfaction, a hunter savoring a trapped catch. Nathan's sharp brown eyes flicked to her, then away, his mind churning. He'd kept his cool, taken her coffee stunt without snapping, but now he was caged, her lies pinning him here. The plane rocked faintly, a pocket of turbulence rattling trays and stirring passengers, but Nathan barely noticed. His burned hand rested on his knee, the skin red and raw, a badge of her spite he couldn't shake. He'd planned to report her when they landed, a clean strike to her career, but that felt distant now. She'd escalated, called in Tom, branded him aggressive with no proof, and the cabin had swallowed it whole. Passengers' whispers drifted back, a mix of curiosity and disdain, their phones still angled his way. He'd thought moving to economy was the end, a bitter win by staying on board. But Karen had flipped the board, turning his restraint into a weapon against him. He needed a countermove, fast, before she tightened the noose further. Minutes ticked, by the night stretching thin, and Nathan shifted, his medical bag still clutched between his feet. He traced its leather edge, grounding himself, plotting. The bathroom was steps away, a chance to clean up, regroup, maybe even signal for help if he could slip a note to a passenger. He glanced at Tom, now slouched against the galley counter, picking at his nails, the taser holstered but within reach. Karen hovered nearby, flipping through a clipboard, her eyes darting to Nathan every few seconds, a predator waiting for a flinch. He stood slowly, his 6-foot frame unfolding, and cleared his throat. "Bathroom," he said, his voice steady. "A request, not a plea," Tom grunted, waving him off, but Karen's head snapped up, her gaze narrowing. "Make it quick," she said, her tone clipped, suspicious. Nathan stepped into the tiny bathroom, the door clicking shut behind him, the hum of the plane louder. Here, a cocoon of metal and noise. He splashed cold water on his face, the sting waking him fully, then dabbed at his burned hand with a paper towel, wincing as it scraped the blisters. His reflection stared back, exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes, but resolve burned beneath it. He'd survived worse, grown up dodging cops and slurs in South LA, built a life as a surgeon against odds stacked higher than this. Karen was a bully with a badge, nothing more. He pulled out his phone, the screen dimmed, and typed a quick note. To his lawyer, flight issue, racial profiling, need advice. He hit send. A lifeline launched, then tucked it away, stepping out, his posture straight again. But Karen was waiting, her arms crossed, her clipboard gone. She'd seen him linger, caught the faint glow of his phone through the door crack, and her smirk was back, sharper now. "What were you doing in there?" she asked, her voice low, accusatory. Nathan met her stare, calm but firm. "Cleaning up your mess," he said, nodding to his damp pants. Her eyes flashed, a spark of rage, but before she could snap back, she turned to Tom, her tone shifting to mock urgency. "He's up to something, check him." Tom lumbered over, his bulk filling the galley, and patted Nathan down, rough hands digging into his pockets. "Phone," Tom grunted, snatching it from Nathan's jacket, tossing it to Karen. She scrolled, her nails clicking, then froze, her smirk twisting into something uglier. "Texting threats, huh?" she said, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Nathan's stomach dropped, disbelief crashing over him. "That's a lie," he said, his voice rising for the first time, cutting through the hum. "I texted my lawyer. That's it." Karen held up the phone, triumphant. But the screen was blank, her thumb swiping nothing. She didn't need proof, he realized, just noise. "He's been disruptive since takeoff," she announced, her voice carrying to the rows ahead. "Threatening crew, now this." Tom's hand clamped Nathan's shoulder, shoving him back into the jump seat, the metal jarring his spine. "Sit," he growled, "or I cuff you." Nathan's pulse hammered, his mind racing. She'd twisted his lifeline into a noose, and he hadn't seen it coming. Karen stepped closer, her heels clicking, and reached into Nathan's medical bag, her fingers rummaging with purpose. She pulled out a notepad, flipped it open, and tore out a blank page, scribbling something fast. "Look at this," she said, holding it up for Tom, her voice rising. "Threats, right here. I'll make you pay." Nathan lunged forward, his restraint cracking. "That's not mine," he snapped, his tone sharp, desperate. "You just wrote that." Tom shoved him back, his meaty palm slamming Nathan's chest, knocking the wind out of him. "Shut it," he barked, snatching the note, scanning it with a grunt. "Looks real to me." Karen nodded, her eyes glinting with victory, and tucked the paper into her pocket, a planted seed now blooming into a trap. Passengers craned their necks, a wave of boos and murmurs swelling from economy. "Trouble from the start," a woman hissed, her voice nasal, sharp. "Should have kicked him off," a man added, his phone filming, the red light blinking like an eye. Nathan's chest heaved, his burned hand throbbing, his pride shredded. He'd stayed silent, played by rules, thought he'd outlasted her petty game, but she'd rigged the deck. "I'm a surgeon," he said, loud, clear, aiming it at the crowd. "She's lying. Check the bag, check the ticket." But Tom smirked, folding his arms. "Save it for the cops, Doc. You're done here." Karen leaned in, her breath hot, on Nathan's ear. "Should have moved when I told you," she whispered, a venomous hiss only he heard. Tom grabbed Nathan's wrists, yanking them behind his back, the cold bite of handcuffs snapping shut. The click echoed in Nathan's skull, a sound he'd heard too often growing up, never thinking it'd follow him here. Disruptive passenger, Tom barked into his radio, his voice official now, sealing the lie. He dragged Nathan to a rear corner, away from the jump seat, shoving him against the bulkhead, the metal rattling. Karen followed, her smirk a permanent fixture, watching as Tom secured the cuffs to a strap, locking Nathan in place. "Stay there," Tom said, stepping back, his taser hand twitching. "One word, and you're toast." Nathan's head spun, the cuffs cutting into his skin, his burned legs screaming with every shift. The cabin tilted, passengers' faces blurring into a wall of judgment, their whispers a chorus of condemnation. He'd texted his lawyer, thought he'd turned the tide, but Karen had snatched that hope, smashed it under her heel. She'd planted the note, spun a tale, and Tom had eaten it up. No questions, no doubt. The weight of it crushed him, her word against his, and hers carried steel. He'd assumed staying calm would shield him, that truth would surface. But now he was bound, bleeding pride, a target painted on his back. How had a seat dispute spiraled into this? The plane droned on, the night endless, and Nathan sat, his wrists raw, his mind clawing for a way out. Karen lingered nearby, flipping through her clipboard again, her eyes flicking to him with every task, a cat toying with a mouse. Tom slouched against the galley, chewing gum, his presence a wall Nathan couldn't breach. The passengers settled, their phones lowering, but the tension hung thick, a storm brewing in the dark. Nathan's victory, his restraint, had been a mirage, and Karen's trap was tightening. He'd underestimated her, thought her spite was small, but she'd drawn blood, literal and not, and the fight was far from over. What would she do next, with him chained and helpless? Dr. Nathan Carter slumped against the bulkhead at the rear of Horizon Airways' red-eye flight from Los Angeles to New York, the cold metal biting into his back. Handcuffs gnawed at his wrists, the steel edges cutting red lines into his skin, a sharp counterpoint to the throbbing burn on his thigh where Karen Reynolds had doused him with coffee. His gray suit hung damp and wrinkled, the fabric clinging to his 6-foot frame, a far cry from the polished surgeon who'd boarded hours ago. The cabin's dim lights cast jagged shadows, the hum of engines a relentless pulse at 35,000 feet, trapping him in this spiraling hell. Blood trickled from a split lip, a fresh wound he didn't yet feel, his mind too tangled in the web Karen had spun. She stood near the galley, her navy uniform pristine, her blonde bun glinting like a beacon of control, watching him with a smirk that promised more pain. Nathan's sharp brown eyes flicked to her, then away, his chest tight with fury and dread. She'd planted a fake note, branded him a threat, and turned Tom Hayes, the hulking air marshal, into her blunt instrument. The cuffs were her victory. His restraint twisted into a noose and the passenger's boos still echoed in his ears, a chorus of blind hate. He'd texted his lawyer from the bathroom, a lifeline he'd thought would shift the tide. But Karen had caught him, escalated her lie, and now he was pinned, helpless. His medical bag sat by his feet, scuffed and untouched, a silent witness to his fall. He flexed his burned hand, the blisters stinging, and replayed her whisper, "Should have moved when I told you." This wasn't just spite, it was war, and he was losing ground fast. The plane droned on, the night thick outside, and Nathan strained to hear over the engines, his ears catching a faint murmur from the galley. Karen leaned against the counter, her clipboard abandoned, speaking into a headset with a low, urgent tone. "Yeah, Victor, it's handled," she said, her voice muffled but clear enough to pierce Nathan's haze. "He's locked down. No trouble now." She paused, nodding, her smirk widening. "You bet he won't know what hit him." Nathan's pulse spiked, his mind snapping to focus. Victor? Who was she reporting to? He tilted his head, straining to catch more, but she turned, her eyes locking onto his, and stepped out of earshot, her words fading into the hum. A chill crawled up his spine. A new player in this game, someone pulling strings from above. Turbulence jolted the plane, a sudden lurch that rattled cups and woke passengers, their grumbles rising like a tide. Tom shifted, his buzz-cut head swiveling, and muttered into his radio. "Rough patch. Uncuff him for safety." He lumbered over, his meaty hands fumbling with the cuffs, the steel clanking as they fell free. Nathan rubbed his wrists, red welts, blooming, and flexed his fingers, blood rushing back with a sting. "Don't get cute," Tom growled, stepping back, his taser hand twitching. Nathan nodded, silent, his mind racing. This was his shot, a crack in their wall. He slid his phone from his pocket, the screen cracked from Karen's earlier snatch, and typed fast. "Horizon flight, detained, need urgent help." He hit send to his lawyer, then pocketed it, his heart pounding with a flicker of hope. He'd gotten a message out, a lifeline to the ground. But Karen's eyes were on him, hawk sharp, catching the faint glow of his screen. She strode over, her heels clicking like gunfire, and loomed above him, her face twisting with rage. "What's that?" she snapped, her hand darting out, snatching the phone before he could react. She held it up, the cracked glass glinting, and scrolled, her nails clicking furiously. "Texting again?" she said, loud, performative, her voice carrying to Tom. "He lunged at me, tried to grab me." Nathan's jaw dropped, disbelief crashing over him. "That's not true," he said, rising, his voice firm, cutting. "I was sitting here texting my lawyer. Check it." Karen smirked, her eyes glinting with malice, and smashed the phone against the galley counter, the screen shattering into a spiderweb of glass, bits skittering across the floor. Tom surged forward, his bulk slamming into Nathan, pinning him against the bulkhead with a thud that rattled his ribs. "You don't learn, do you?" he roared, his fist crashing into Nathan's jaw, splitting his lip with a wet crack. Blood, sprayed, hot and coppery, dripping down Nathan's chin as he staggered, pain exploding in his skull. Passengers gasped, then cheered, a ragged wave of approval rolling from economy. "Get him!" a man shouted, his voice thick with booze. "Teach him a lesson!" a woman screeched, her phone filming, the red light blinking. Nathan's vision blurred, his burned hand clawing at the wall for balance, but Tom grabbed his collar, slamming him back again, the metal groaning under the force. "Stay down," he snarled, his breath hot with fury, his taser now drawn, buzzing faintly. Karen stepped back, her smirk ablade, watching the chaos she'd ignited. "Told you he's trouble," she said, her voice cool, triumphant, aimed at Tom but loud enough for the cabin. Nathan's head spun, blood trickling into his mouth, his burned thigh screaming as he slid to the floor. He'd sent the text, thought. He'd turned the tide, a quiet win against her lies. But she'd flipped it, turned his move into an assault. His phone lay in pieces, his lifeline severed, and Tom's fist had drawn first blood. How had she spun this so fast? He coughed, spitting red onto the carpet, his sharp eyes locking onto Karen's, defiance burning through the pain. She'd escalated, brought muscle, but he wasn't broken yet. Tom loomed over him, taser in hand, his gray eyes hard as stone. "One more stunt, and you're out," he said, his voice low, final. Nathan wiped his lip, the sting sharpening his focus, and glanced at the galley where Karen had retreated, her headset back on, her lips moving fast. "Victor'll love this," she muttered, barely audible. But Nathan caught it, the name sinking like lead in his gut. Victor Grayson, Horizon's COO, a name he knew from boardroom whispers. A cold, ruthless man who crushed dissent like glass. Was he her puppet master? Nathan's mind raced, piecing it together. The call, her confidence, the way she wielded Tom like a club. This wasn't just her vendetta. It was bigger, a machine grinding him down. The plane steadied, the turbulence fading, but the storm inside raged on. Nathan sat, his back to the bulkhead, blood pooling on his tongue, his burned hand trembling. Passengers settled, their cheers dying into murmurs, but their eyes stayed on him, a mix of fear and glee. His text had gone through, he told himself, a lifeline to his lawyer, a chance to flip this when they landed. He'd thought he'd outsmarted her, turned her game against her, but she'd struck back, harder, bloodier, with Victor's shadow looming. His phone was gone, his jaw ached, his pride bled out on the floor, and Karen's smirk told him she wasn't done. He'd underestimated her reach, thought her spite was small, but now he saw the truth. She had power, backing, and a thirst for his ruin. Nathan's chest heaved, his breath ragged as he watched Karen adjust her scarf, her movements deliberate, a queen surveying her battlefield. Tom slouched nearby, chewing gum, his taser back in its holster but his presence a wall of threat. The cabin's hum swallowed the silence, the night stretching endless, and Nathan's hope flickered, dim but alive. He'd sent the text, a crack in their armor, but Karen had shattered his edge, turned his move into a beating. Victor's name hung in the air, a ghost he couldn't see, and the weight of it crushed him. He'd assumed he could wait her out, outlast her petty rage, but now he was bleeding, cornered, and the game had shifted. What would Victor order next, with Nathan's blood already on the floor? Dr. Nathan Carter slumped against the bulkhead at the rear of Horizon Airways' red-eye flight from Los Angeles to New York, his battered body a map of pain. Blood crusted his split lip, a bitter taste pooling in his mouth from Tom Hayes' fist, while his burned thigh pulsed beneath his damp gray suit, the coffee stain a dark badge of Karen Reynolds' spite. The handcuffs were off, but his wrists bore red welts, raw and stinging, a lingering shackle of her lies. The cabin's dim glow flickered across the metal walls, the engine's hum a relentless drone at 35,000 feet, locking him in this spiraling chaos. His cracked phone lay in shards by the galley, his lifeline to his lawyer smashed by Karen's hand, and her smirk lingered in his vision, a venomous promise of more to come. Victor Grayson's name echoed in his skull, a shadow pulling strings, turning this into something bigger than a seat dispute. Nathan's sharp brown eyes darted around, his chest tight with fury and exhaustion. His medical bag sat by his feet, scuffed but intact, a tether to the life he'd built, now crumbling under Karen's warpath. She'd planted a note, spun a tale of threats, and turned Tom into her enforcer, his beating a public spectacle that drew cheers from the crowd. Passengers' faces loomed in the shadows, a wall of judgment, their whispers a venomous hiss. He'd texted his lawyer, thought he'd struck back, but Karen had flipped it, smashed his hope, and left him bleeding. Now he sat, cornered, his 6-foot frame hunched against the cold steel, plodding through the haze. He needed an ally, a crack in this prison, before she struck again. The plane rocked faintly, a murmur of turbulence stirring the air, and the passengers shifted, their restlessness growing. Karen lingered near the galley, her navy uniform pristine, her blonde bun glinting as she chatted with Tom, her voice low, conspiratorial. Nathan caught her glance, a flicker of triumph, and his gut twisted. She was planning, relishing this, and Victor's shadow loomed larger with every second. But the cabin wasn't still. Voices rose from economy, a restless buzz, swelling into shouts. "He's a problem!" a man barked, his voice thick with liquor, his pinstripe suit wrinkled from hours aloft. "Should have thrown him off!" a woman screeched, her nasal tone piercing the hum. Nathan's head snapped up, his pulse spiking. As eyes turned his way, a dozen phones glinting, filming his ruin. A businessman in a cheap blazer stood, his face flushed red, and hurled a soda can, the aluminum flashing as it arced through the air. It struck Nathan's forehead with a sickening thud, splitting the skin, blood welling hot and fast, trickling into his eye. He flinched, his burned hand flying up, wiping the sting, but the crowd erupted, a wave of jeers and laughter crashing over him. "Take that, jerk!" the man roared, staggering forward, egged on by claps. Nathan's vision blurred, panic clawing at his throat, but he forced it down, his voice cutting through the din. "Stop this," he said, loud, firm, aiming it at Tom, who slouched nearby, chewing gum, his gray eyes glinting with amusement. "Do your job," Nathan added, his tone steel, but Tom smirked, folding his arms. "Looks like they're handling it," he muttered, a shrug dismissing the chaos. Karen stepped forward, her heels clicking, her smirk widening as she watched the mob feed on itself. "Told you he's trouble," she said, her voice carrying, fanning the flames. "A woman in now." A garish floral dress flung a plastic cup, its ice rattling as it bounced off Nathan's shoulder, soaking his suit anew. "Get him out of here!" she shrieked, her phone filming, her face twisted with glee. Nathan ducked, his heart pounding, the blood from his forehead mixing with sweat, stinging his eyes. Slurs flew, sharp and jagged. Thug, troublemaker, slicing deeper than the can. He'd faced hate before, grown up dodging it in South LA, but this was a feeding frenzy. Karen's lies their fuel, and he was the prey. He scanned the crowd, desperate for a lifeline, and spotted a teen a few rows up, maybe 16, his hoodie pulled low, filming with a shaky hand. The kid's eyes were wide, not hostile, a flicker of doubt in them. Nathan leaned forward, his voice low, urgent, a whisper under the roar. "Help me get this out, show the truth." The teen hesitated, his thumb hovering over the screen, a crack in the wall of hate. Nathan's chest lifted, hope sparking, a chance to turn this nightmare public, to expose Karen's game. But Karen's hawk eyes caught the exchange, her stride, swift as she closed the gap, snatching the teen's phone with a flick of her wrist. "No recording, troublemakers," she snapped, her tone cold, deleting the video with a swipe, the evidence vanishing into the void. The teen shrank back, mumbling, "Sorry," as Karen tossed the phone onto his lap, her smirk ablade. "He's intimidating passengers now," she announced, loud, performative, spinning to Tom. "See? Unhinged." Tom lumbered over, his bulk towering, and grabbed Nathan's collar, yanking him up, the fabric tearing at the seam. "Enough," he growled, his breath hot with tobacco, shoving Nathan back against the bulkhead, the metal jarring his spine. "You're done, Doc. Cops'll sort you out when we land." Nathan's head spun, the gash on his forehead throbbing, his burned hand trembling as he gripped the wall. The mob cheered, a ragged chant swelling, "Lock him up," echoing through the cabin, a noose tightening with every shout. Nathan's breath came ragged, his sharp eyes locking onto Karen's, defiance burning through the pain. He'd found an ally, thought he'd flipped the script, a video to prove her lies, but she'd crushed it, turned his plea into another strike. The teen's face faded into the crowd, his chance gone, and the passengers' hate washed over him, a tide he couldn't stem. "I'm a surgeon," he shouted, his voice hoarse, aimed at the mob. "She's lying, this is wrong." But the words drowned in their jeers, their phones filming his blood, his ruin, a spectacle they'd devour. "Online," Karen laughed, a sharp, brittle sound, stepping back to the galley, her control absolute. "Keep dreaming," she muttered, loud enough for him to hear, a taunt that cut deeper than the can. Tom loomed, his taser drawn again, buzzing faintly, a threat hanging in the air. "Sit still or I light you up," he said, his voice low, final. Nathan sank back, his suit soaked with blood and ice, his body screaming with every shift. The mob settled, their shouts fading into murmurs, but their eyes stayed on him, a pack of wolves waiting for the kill. He'd thought the teen was his, way out, a crack in Karen's armor, but she'd slammed it shut, turned his hope into dust. Victor's name lingered, a ghost in her laughter, and Nathan's mind raced, piecing it together. This wasn't just her, it was a machine, and he was caught in its gears. He'd underestimated her reach, thought he could outlast her, but now he was bleeding, cornered, and the crowd was her weapon. Hey folks, what's your take on this madness? Comment number 1 if you're furious at how these passengers turned on Nathan, or number 2 if you think he's got to fight dirtier to survive this. Drop a like if this mob scene's got your blood boiling, and hit subscribe to see how he claws his way out. Was he too trusting with that kid, or is his cool head still his best shot? Can he outsmart a cabin full of hate, or is Karen's grip too tight? Next up, a twist that'll flip this nightmare upside down, so don't miss it. Dr. Nathan Carter leaned against the bulkhead at the rear of Horizon Airways' red-eye flight from Los Angeles to New York, his body a tapestry of wounds. Blood crusted his split lip and forehead, the gash from the soda can throbbing with every heartbeat while his burned thigh ached beneath his soaked gray suit, the coffee stain a dark scar of Karen Reynolds' earlier assault. His wrists bore red welts from the cuffs, his broad shoulders slumped against the cold metal, the cabin's hum a relentless pulse at 35,000 feet. The mob's jeers still echoed in his ears, their slurs and cheers a brutal wave that had crashed over him, fueled by Karen's lies. She stood near the galley, her navy uniform crisp, her blonde bun glinting like a crown, her smirk a constant taunt as she watched him bleed. Tom Hayes loomed nearby, his buzz-cut head tilted, his taser holstered but ever-present, a wall of menace pinning Nathan in place. Nathan's sharp brown eyes flickered with exhaustion and defiance, his chest tight with the weight of it all. His medical bag rested by his feet, scuffed and battered, a lifeline to his identity as a surgeon, now buried under Karen's vendetta. She'd turned the passengers into a mob, crushed his chance at a video ally, and left him bleeding, cornered. Victor Grayson's name lingered in his mind, a ghost in her whispers, a power orchestrating this chaos. He'd thought he could outlast her, wait for his lawyer's help, but every move he made, she countered harder, bloodier. His head pounded, the gash oozing, but he forced his focus, scanning the cabin for a crack, a way to flip this nightmare, before she struck again. The plane droned on, the night endless, when a sharp groan cut through the hum, a sound raw and guttural from a few rows ahead. Nathan's gaze snapped up, his surgeon's instincts kicking in, and he spotted a man in a faded denim jacket, maybe 50, clutching his chest, his face gray and slick with sweat. His breaths came in shallow gasps, his body slumping against the seat, a textbook heart attack unfolding in real time. Passengers twisted, murmuring, their phones lowering as panic rippled. Nathan surged to his feet, ignoring the stab of pain in his thigh, his voice booming over the chaos. "I'm a surgeon. Let me through. He needs help." He grabbed his medical bag, his burned hand trembling but steady, and pushed forward, adrenaline overriding his wounds. Karen spun, her heels clicking as she blocked his path, her arms crossed, her face a mask of scorn. "Sit down," she snapped, her tone icy, cutting. "You're no doctor, you're a liar." Nathan's jaw clenched, disbelief crashing over him, but he held her stare, his voice firm. "He's dying. Move, or he's on you." The man's groans grew louder. His wife, beside him sobbing, "Please, someone." Passengers shifted, their hostility wavering, eyes darting between Nathan and Karen. Tom lumbered closer, his hand on his taser, but hesitated, the urgency piercing even his thick skull. Karen's smirk faltered, her control slipping, and she stepped aside, her eyes glinting with something darker. "Fine," she hissed, "but this changes nothing." Nathan shoved past, dropping to his knees beside the man, his bag spilling open as he pulled out a stethoscope and a penlight. The man's pulse was erratic, his chest heaving, sweat beading on his ashen skin. "Sir, stay with me," Nathan said, his voice calm, commanding, the surgeon taking over. He checked the man's airway, his sharp eyes scanning for signs, then grabbed a water bottle from the wife, tearing his own sleeve to soak it, cooling the man's brow. "No defibrillator," he muttered, improvising fast, pressing firm, rhythmic compressions to the man's chest, counting under his breath. The cabin watched, breathless, phones filming anew, gasps rising as the man's color flickered, a faint pink creeping back. Minutes stretched, Nathan's burned hand screaming, his forehead bleeding into his eye, but he didn't stop, his focus a blade cutting through the chaos. The man coughed, a ragged sound, his eyes fluttering open, and Nathan eased off, checking his pulse again. Steady now, stable enough for the flight to land. "He's through the worst," Nathan said, loud, clear, aimed at the crowd. "Needs a hospital soon, but he'll make it." The wife sobbed, clutching Nathan's arm. "Thank you, oh God, thank you." Passengers murmured, some clapping, others staring, their hate fracturing under his skill. Nathan stood, wiping blood and sweat from his face, his chest lifting with a surge of triumph. He'd saved a life, turned their jeers into awe, a crack in Karen's wall of lies. He glanced at her, expecting defeat, but her smirk was back, sharper, a predator biding time. Karen stepped forward, her heels clicking, her voice slicing through the murmurs. "He assaulted that man," she said, loud, performative, her tone dripping with feigned shock. "Pretended to help, but he attacked him. I saw it." Nathan's stomach dropped, disbelief crashing over him, his triumph curdling into dread. "That's insane," he roared, spinning to face her, his voice raw. "I just saved him, you saw it." The wife blinked, confused, but Karen leaned in, her eyes glinting with malice. "You shoved him, forced him down, endangered everyone." Tom surged forward, his bulk looming, grabbing Nathan's collar, yanking him back toward the bulkhead. "Enough," he barked, his taser buzzing as he shoved Nathan down, the metal jarring his spine anew. Passengers gasped, their awe flipping back to boos, phones filming the twist, Karen's lie swallowing Nathan's heroism whole. "He's a fraud," a man shouted, the pinstripe exec from earlier, his voice thick with renewed hate. "Lock him up," the floral dress woman screeched, her cup-throwing hand waving. Nathan's head spun, his burned hand clawing at the floor, blood dripping from his forehead as Tom snapped the cuffs back on, tighter this time, the steel biting deep. "You're done," Tom growled, his breath hot, dragging Nathan to a corner, securing the cuffs to a strap. The man's wife stammered, "No, he helped." But her voice drowned in the mob's roar. Karen's smirk a beacon of victory. Nathan's chest heaved, his sharp eyes locking onto Karen's, fury burning through. The pain. He'd saved a life, turned the tide, thought he'd shattered her lies with raw skill, but she'd flipped it, spun his triumph into a crime. The crowd's hate surged anew, their phones capturing his cuffs, his blood, a spectacle of ruin. "I'm a doctor," he shouted, hoarse, desperate, but the words sank, lost in their jeers. Karen retreated to the galley, her clipboard in hand, her voice crackling over the intercom. "Captain, we've got an emergency. Violent passenger, need to land now." Nathan's heart sank, dread pooling as Tom radioed ahead. "Detain him. On touchdown, he's a threat." Victor's shadow loomed, a whisper in her calm, and Nathan realized this was her endgame. The plane tilted, the captain's voice booming. "Prepare for emergency landing." And the cabin buzzed, seatbelts clicking, eyes on Nathan, a prisoner in their midst. His burned hand trembled, his forehead oozed, his triumph ashes in his mouth. He'd thought saving the man would free him, prove his worth, but Karen had turned it against him, a lie so bold it rewrote reality. The cuffs cut deeper, his body screamed, and the mob's hate was a wall he couldn't breach. He'd underestimated her again, thought his skill could shield him, but she'd drawn blood, twisted truth, and now the ground rushed up to meet him, a new trap snapping shut. Victor's name hung in the air, a puppet master's pull, and Nathan's hope flickered, dimming with every mile they fell. Dr. Nathan Carter sat cuffed against the bulkhead at the rear of Horizon Airways' red-eye flight, now descending toward Denver, his body a battlefield of pain. Blood crusted his split lip and forehead, the gash from the soda can pulsing with every jolt, while his burned thigh throbbed beneath his soaked gray suit. The coffee stain a cruel mark of Karen Reynolds' spite. His wrists ached under the tight steel cuffs, red welts deepening with each shift. His 6-foot frame slumped against the cold metal as the engines whined, dropping from 35,000 feet. The cabin buzzed with tension, seatbelts clicking, passengers craning to watch him, their phones glinting like vulture eyes. Karen stood near the galley, her navy uniform pristine, her blonde bun glinting under the flickering lights, her smirk a silent gloat. Tom Hayes loomed beside her, his buzz-cut head tilted, his taser holstered but ready, a wall of threat pinning Nathan in place. Nathan's sharp brown eyes burned with fury and exhaustion, his chest tight with the weight of betrayal. He'd saved a man's life, turned the mob's hate into awe, thought he'd cracked Karen's lies with raw skill, but she'd spun it, branded him an assailant, and locked him back in cuffs. The emergency landing was her doing, her voice on the intercom, sealing his fate, Victor Grayson's shadow whispering in her calm. His medical bag sat by his feet, scuffed and battered, a tether to his identity now buried under her warpath. The plane tilted, the captain's voice crackling. Brace for landing. And Nathan braced too, his mind racing. He'd survived her mob, her lies, thought his heroism would carry him through, but the ground loomed, a new trap snapping shut. The wheels hit the tarmac with a jolt, the plane shuddering as it slowed, red and blue lights flashing through the windows, a swarm of police waiting outside. Passengers murmured, their hostility reigniting, phones filming as the cabin door hissed open, cold Denver air rushing in. Tom yanked Nathan up, his meaty hand clamping his arm, the cuffs rattling as he dragged him toward the exit. "Move it!" he growled, his breath hot with tobacco, shoving Nathan down the jetway, the metal floor echoing under his polished shoes. Nathan's burned hand gripped his bag, his forehead oozing, but he kept his head high, believing his feet would clear him. He'd stabilized a heart attack mid-flight, a truth no lie could bury. His lawyer would meet him, sort this out, and Karen's game would collapse under its own weight. But the jetway opened to chaos, 6 local cops in black vests swarming him, their boots pounding the pavement, guns drawn, faces hard with suspicion. "Down!" one roared, a wiry man with a crew cut, slamming Nathan onto the wet tarmac, the impact jarring his ribs, his burned thigh screaming as asphalt bit through his suit. Rain streaked his bloodied face, pooling red around him, his sharp eyes wide with shock. "Hands where we see 'em," another barked, a woman with a tight ponytail, her pistol trained on his head. Nathan complied, his wrists still cuffed, his voice steady despite the pain. "I'm a doctor. I saved a passenger. Check the plane." But the wiry cop sneered. "Save it, terrorist," yanking his arms tighter, the cuffs cutting deeper as they hauled him up, dragging him toward a squad car, lights flashing in the dark. Karen emerged behind them, her heels clicking, her clipboard in hand, her voice loud, performative. "He's unhinged, attacked a passenger, threatened us all," she said, her tone dripping with feigned fear, aimed at the cops but carrying to the jetway where passengers filmed, their boos rising anew. Nathan's stomach dropped, disbelief crashing over him, his brief hope curdling into dread. "That's a lie," he shouted, his voice raw, cutting through the rain. "I'm a surgeon. I stabilized him. Ask his wife." But the cops didn't flinch, their grips tightening, shoving him against the car, his forehead smacking the hood, fresh blood trickling down his cheek. The wiry cop smirked, heard it all before, and slammed the door, locking him in the back, the cage a new prison. Inside, Nathan's chest heaved, his sharp eyes darting through the rain-streaked window, watching Karen retreat, her smirk a blade. The cops milled outside, radios crackling, and he caught snatches of their chatter. Grayson called it in. High priority. Victor Grayson, Horizon's COO, the name from her galley call, a puppet master pulling strings from above. Nathan's mind raced, piecing it together, her confidence, Tom's brutality. Now this ambush. He'd thought his lawyer's text had reached, that his feet would free him, But Victor had preempted it, turned the landing into a takedown. The car rocked as the wiry cop slid in, his eyes glinting in the rear view. "Big shot, huh?" "Not anymore," he muttered, starting the engine, the precinct looming ahead, hours dragged in a holding cell. The concrete cold, the air thick with sweat and bleach. Nathan sat, his burned hand trembling, his suit torn, plodding through the haze. His lawyer, Sarah Klein, arrived, a fierce woman in her 50s with gray streaks in her dark hair, her briefcase snapping open as she stormed in. "This is insanity," she said, her voice sharp, pulling out his first-class ticket and hospital ID, slamming them on the table. "He's Dr. Nathan Carter, saved a man mid-flight, and they've got nothing but lies." The wiry cop shrugged, but a sergeant with tired eyes reviewed the papers, nodding slowly. "Checks out," he grunted, unlocking the cuffs, the steel falling free. "You're clear, Doc. Go." Nathan stood, his wrists raw, his chest lifting with relief, believing he'd beaten her trap. Sarah gripped his arm, her eyes blazing. "We're suing Horizon. This ends now." He nodded, his sharp eyes glinting with resolve. The precinct, doors swinging open to wet Denver streets, freedom tasting sharp and sweet. He'd survived the landing. The cops thought his truth had won, a crack in Victor's machine. But as he stepped out, his phone returned cracked but functional, buzzed, with alerts, a flood of notifications lighting up the screen. His stomach sank, dread pooling as he swiped through headlines. "Fraud doctor attacks passenger, sparks flight chaos. Horizon hero or hoax?" Tabloids screamed, photos of him bloodied and cuffed splashed across X, a smear campaign erupting, in real time. Nathan's sharp eyes widened, his burned hand trembling as he scrolled, the rain soaking his torn suit anew. Victor's voice echoed from Karen's call. He won't know what hit him. And now it landed, a nationwide gut punch. Forged documents surfaced online, alleging a violent past, arrests that never happened, his career a lie. Sarah cursed. "This is Grayson. He's burying you." Her tone grim, piecing it together. Nathan's chest tightened, his triumph ashes in his mouth, the release a mirage. He'd thought he'd won, cleared his name with the cops. But Victor had struck back harder, uglier, turning his heroism into a scandal. Passers-by stared, whispering, phones snapping pics as he stood, exposed. The city a new mob. The precinct faded behind him, Sarah plodding beside him, but Nathan's head spun, his burned thighs screaming with every step. His lawyer's proof had freed him, shattered Karen's lie, but Victor's machine had roared to life, a counterstrike that dwarfed the plane's chaos. His name, his life's work, smeared across screens, a lie so vast it swallowed his truth. He'd underestimated Victor's reach, thought his feet would shield him, but now he was bleeding, hunted, and the world was turning against him. Rain pounded, his suit clinging, and Nathan's hope flickered, dimming with every headline. Victor's shadow stretched beyond the flight, a titan flexing muscle, and Nathan's victory was dust, a new war igniting on the ground. Dr. Nathan Carter stood in the rain-soaked streets of New York, his torn gray suit clinging to his battered frame, the city's neon glow a harsh contrast to the darkness swallowing his life. Blood crusted his split lip and forehead, the gash from the soda can pulsing faintly, while his burned thigh ached beneath the damp fabric, a lingering scar of Karen Reynolds' coffee assault. His wrists bore red welts from the cuffs, his sharp brown eyes glinting with a mix of exhaustion and resolve as he scrolled through his cracked phone, the screen a flood of lies. Tabloids screamed fraud doctor and flight menace. Victor Grayson's smear campaign painting him as a violent hoax, forged records of a fake past plastered across X. Sarah Klein, his lawyer, paced beside him, her gray-streaked hair damp, her voice sharp with fury. "This is Grayson's doing, Nathan. He's burying you alive," she said, her briefcase clutched tight, plotting their next move. Nathan's chest tightened, his burned hand trembling as he swiped through the venom, the rain streaking his bloodied face. He'd landed in New York after the Denver fiasco, freed from the cops by Sarah's proof, his first-class ticket and hospital ID shattering Karen's lies. He'd saved a man mid-flight, thought his heroism would hold, a crack in Victor's machine. But the COO had struck back, turning his release into a nationwide nightmare. The precinct victory was dust, his name now a punching bag for every bigot with a keyboard. He'd returned home, a sleek brownstone in Harlem, expecting to regroup, but the headlines followed, a relentless tide. Sarah gripped his arm, her eyes blazing. "We sue Horizon, expose Grace, and end this now," she said, her tone steel. And Nathan nodded, his jaw clenched, a fire reigniting in his gut. Days blurred into a whirlwind, Nathan and Sarah building their case, his medical bag a constant at his side, a tether to the surgeon he was. He revealed his secret to her, a bombshell dropped in her cluttered office. He was Horizon Airways' majority owner, hidden behind a shell company, a silent titan who'd bought control years ago to, steer it quietly. "They don't know," he said, his voice low, cutting. "But they will." Sarah's eyes widened, then narrowed, a grin flashing. "This changes everything," she muttered, filing the suit, a legal missile aimed at Horizon's heart, the My. Boardroom erupted when it hit, executives scrambling, Karen's name surfacing as the spark, and Nathan's ownership papers landed like a thunderclap, undeniable, notarized, his signature bold in black ink. The board acted fast, a press conference called, their polished faces grim on live TV. "Karen Reynolds is terminated," the chairman announced, his voice clipped. "Effective immediately. We're launching a full review. Zero tolerance for misconduct." Nathan watched from his brownstone, his burned hand gripping a coffee mug, his sharp eyes glinting with triumph. Sarah clapped his shoulder. "We've got 'em, Nathan, they're folding." Passengers from the flight came forward, the heart attack man's wife sobbing on air. "He saved my husband, they lied." The tide turned, X buzzing with support, justice for Dr. Carter trending, and Nathan's chest lifted, a victory hard won. He'd beaten Karen, cracked Victor's armor, thought he'd reclaimed his name, his airline, his life. But the screen flickered, a breaking news alert cutting through, and Nathan's stomach sank, dread pooling like ice. Victor Grayson appeared, his silver hair slicked back, his cold blue eyes piercing the camera, a shark in a tailored suit. "Dr. Carter's ownership is under review," he said, his voice smooth, lethal, "due to a troubling past we've uncovered." Nathan's mug slipped, shattering on the hardwood, coffee splashing his shoes as Sarah cursed, "What the hell?" The screen flashed to a mugshot, Nathan's face, younger, bruised, a fake arrest from 20 years ago. "Assault, 2005, the caption read, a lie so bold it stole his breath. Victor's smirk twitched. "We're protecting Horizon from instability," and the boardroom doors slammed shut, a new vote called chaos erupting behind him. Nathan's sharp eyes widened, his burned hand trembling as he stumbled back, the room spinning. "That's not real," he roared, his voice raw, cutting. But Sarah was on her phone, dialing fast. "Grayson bribed someone. This is fabricated," she said, her tone grim, piecing it together. Sirens wailed outside, red and blue lights flashing through the rain-streaked windows, and Nathan's heart lurched, dread swallowing his triumph. Cops pounded the door, their fists shaking the frame, and Sarah shouted, "Don't open it!" But they burst in, a burly officer with a scarred face leading, his badge glinting as he barked, "Nathan Carter, you're under arrest, assault charge 2005. Cameras rolled outside, news vans swarming, X lighting up with fraud doctor busted, a fresh wave of hate crashing over him. The scarred cop cuffed him, the steel biting deeper than Tom's ever had, yanking Nathan toward the door as Sarah lunged. "This is illegal. I've got proof." But the cop shoved her back. "Tell it to the judge," and dragged Nathan into the rain, his burned thigh screaming with every step. Passengers' cheers from the TV faded, replaced by boos from the street, faces pressed to windows, phones filming his ruin. Victor's voice crackled through a cop's radio. "You'll never fly again, Carter." A gloat that cut deeper than the cuffs, his silver-haired shadow flexing muscle. Nathan's head spun, his victory ashes in his mouth, the board's retreat a mirage. He'd sued, won, thought he'd toppled them, but Victor had struck back. A lie so vast it rewrote his past, landing him in chains. Sarah chased after, her briefcase swinging, shouting, "I'll bail you out, Nathan, hold on." The scarred cop slammed him into a squad car, the door thudding shut, the cage a new prison, wetter, colder than Denver's. Nathan's sharp eyes locked onto the brownstone, his home fading as the car peeled away, the city a blur of hate. Bail came fast, Sarah's proof cracking the charge's shell, a crooked cop confessing to Victor's bribe on tape, but the damage was done. He stumbled out, free but broken, cameras flashing, his name a curse on every tongue. Victor's smirk lingered, a titan unbowed, and Nathan's chest heaved, his burned hand trembling. He'd beaten Karen, thought he'd won Horizon, but Victor had flipped it, turned his triumph into a public gut punch, a new war igniting in the shadows. Hey folks, what's your take on this wild turn? Comment number 1 if you're cheering Nathan's fight to reclaim his airline, or number 2 if you think Victor's too slick to beat. Hit like if this corporate backstab's got you hooked, and smash subscribe to catch every brutal twist. Did Nathan push too hard exposing his ownership, or is his grit the key to crushing Grayson? How far will Victor go to bury him now that the gloves are off? Stick around, cause the next blow's gonna shake this story to its core. Dr. Nathan Carter stood in a New York courtroom, his torn gray suit replaced by a crisp black one, his burned thigh still aching beneath the fabric, a silent scar of Karen Reynolds' coffee assault. Blood no longer crusted his split lip or forehead, but the gash's faint red line pulsed with every heartbeat, a reminder of the soda can that had marked him. His wrists, once welted by cuffs, flexed free now, his sharp brown eyes glinting with a mix of exhaustion and triumph as the judge's gavel cracked, echoing off the wood-paneled walls. The crooked cop who'd framed him for Victor Grayson's fake 2005 assault charge sat slumped in the witness box, his scarred face pale, confessing on the stand, "Grayson paid me 10 grand to plant it." Sarah Klein, Nathan's lawyer, stood. Beside him, her gray-streaked hair pulled tight, her voice sharp with victory. "Case dismissed," the judge intoned, and Nathan's chest lifted, a hard-won win against Horizon's COO shattering the lie that had cuffed him anew. The courtroom buzzed, reporters scribbling, their pens a frantic scratch as Nathan stepped out, Sarah's hand on his shoulder, her briefcase swinging. "We've got him, Nathan. This tape buries Grayson," she said, her tone steel, replaying the cop's confession in her mind. Nathan nodded, his jaw clenched, his medical bag slung over his shoulder, a tether to the surgeon he'd fought to reclaim. He'd sued Horizon, exposed his ownership, fired Karen, thought he'd turned the tide. But Victor's smear had landed him in jail, a public humiliation that still burned. The cop's truth had freed him, cleared his name, a crack in Victor's machine, and he walked into the rain-soaked streets believing he'd finally struck back, a victory to rebuild on. But the air shifted, a bitter wind cutting through Harlem as Nathan reached his brownstone, the city's hum turning hostile. His phone buzzed, cracked but alive, alerts flooding the screen, and his stomach sank, dread pooling like tar. X erupted, with venom, fraud doctor bribes cop, Carter's lies exposed, hashtags twisting his win into a conspiracy, Horizon hustler trending black and ugly. Victor's silver-haired face flashed on news loops, his cold blue eyes piercing. "We're investigating Carter's coercion of law enforcement, protecting our airline." Nathan's sharp eyes widened, his burned hand trembling as he scrolled, the rain streaking his suit anew. Sarah cursed beside him. "He's flipped it, doxed you." Her voice grim, pulling up a site listing his address, his hospital, a call to arms for every bigot with a grudge. Nathan's chest tightened, his victory ashes in his mouth as tires screeched outside, a mob forming under the streetlights, their shouts a jagged roar. "Get out, fraud!" a man bellowed, his voice thick with booze, hurling a brick through, his window, glass shattering across the hardwood, rain pouring in. Faces twisted with hate, dozens strong, surged closer, their phones filming, signs scrawled with slurs. "Thug doctor," "liar in scrubs," waving like flags. Nathan lunged for the door, locking it, his burned thigh screaming as he dragged, a couch to block the frame, his sharp eyes darting to Sarah. "Call security," he barked, his voice raw, but she was on it, phone pressed to her ear. "They're swamped, Nathan. This is Grayson's doing." The mob pounded the walls, fists and boots shaking the brownstone, and Nathan's head spun, his courtroom win a mirage. He'd cleared his name, thought he'd silenced Victor, but the COO had turned the public into a weapon, a racist tide crashing over him. A woman in a red cap screamed, "You don't belong here!" Her voice shrill, lobbing a rock that cracked the front door's glass panel, splinters flying. Nathan ducked, his medical bag clutched tight, his breath ragged as he retreated. To his office, the one room with a steel lock. "They're at the hospital too," Sarah shouted, scrolling X. Photos of protesters smashing windows at Harlem General, his workplace, his sanctuary, now a war zone under Victor's command. Nathan slammed the office door, twisting the lock, his sharp eyes scanning the room, bookshelves trembling as the mob's roar grew. He'd beaten the charge, thought he'd won, a truth so clear it should have held. But Victor had flipped it, turned his freedom into a target. The hospital's security line buzzed dead, no help coming, and Nathan barricaded the door with a desk, his burned hand trembling as he braced it shut. "He's got them riled," Sarah said, her voice low, grim, piecing it together. "Leaked. Your win is a scam, they're blind with hate." Nathan's chest heaved, his forehead's gash throbbing, plodding through the chaos, when a crash jolted the room, a Molotov cocktail sailing through the broken window, flames erupting across, his files, smoke choking the air. Nathan lunged, grabbing a coat to smother the fire, his burned thigh screaming as he stomped the blaze, ash and sparks stinging his eyes. "Get back!" Sarah yelled, coughing, pulling him to the corner as the flames licked higher, his patient, records curling black, his life's work burning. The mob cheered outside, a ragged chant, "Burn it down!" Echoing through the rain, their phones filming the inferno, a spectacle of ruin. Nathan's sharp eyes watered, his chest tight with smoke and fury, as he kicked a chair through the rear window, glass shattering outward, a desperate exit. He shoved Sarah through, then followed, tumbling onto wet grass, his suit singed, his burned hand raw as he clutched his bag, the fire's roar drowning the mob's hate. They ran, the brownstone blazing behind them, flames licking the night sky, sirens wailing distant but useless. Nathan's head spun, his courtroom went a ghost, Victor's counterstrike a firestorm that dwarfed the flight's chaos. He'd cleared. His name thought he'd stood tall, but the COO had turned society against him. A racist mob, his blunt instrument, burning his home, his hospital, his life. "Safe house," Sarah gasped, leading him through alleys, her briefcase lost to the flames, her voice steel despite the ash on her face. Nathan's chest heaved, his sharp eyes glinting with defiance, his burned thigh dragging as they vanished into the dark, the mob's cheers fading, Victor's smirk a shadow in the smoke. Nathan's breath came ragged, his suit clinging with rain and soot, his medical bag a lifeline in his grip. He'd beaten the cop's lie, thought he'd won a round, a crack in Victor's armor, but Grayson had struck back, harder, uglier, turning his victory into ashes. The hospital smoldered miles away, his home a pyre, and the world saw him as the villain, a lie so vast it swallowed his truth. He'd underestimated Victor's reach, thought his grit could shield him. But now he was burned, hunted, and the public was a noose tightening. Sarah's safe house loomed, a brick haven in the shadows, and Nathan's hope flickered, dim but alive, plodding through the wreckage as Victor's machine roared on. Dr. Nathan Carter crouched in the shadows of a brick safe house on the edge of New York, his singed black suit reeking of smoke, his burned thigh throbbing beneath the charred fabric, a relentless echo of Karen Reynolds's coffee assault. Ash streaked his face, the gash on his forehead pulsing faintly, while his sharp brown eyes glinted with a mix of exhaustion and defiance, scanning the dark alley beyond the cracked window. His wrists, once welted by cuffs, flexed stiffly, his medical bag clutched tight, a lifeline salvaged from the fire that had devoured his brownstone. Sarah Klein paced beside him, her gray-streaked hair wild from the chaos, her voice low, plotting. "We've got the cops' tape, Nathan. Grayson's exposed," she said, her tone steel, clutching a burner phone, their last link to the outside. The mob's roar still echoed in his skull, Victor's machine burning his life to ash. But here, he'd regroup, strike back. Nathan's chest heaved, his burned hand trembling as he wiped soot from his eyes. The courtroom went a ghost in his mind. He'd cleared the fake assault charge, thought he'd turned the tide, but Victor had flipped it, turned a racist mob loose, torched his home, his hospital, his name. The safe house was a bunker, its bare walls and flickering bulb a stark refuge, and Nathan stood, his 6-foot frame unsteady but resolute. "Horizon's mine," he said, his voice raw, cutting. "We rally the board. End this." Sarah nodded, dialing fast, her contacts a web of allies still loyal to Nathan's shadow ownership. He'd beaten Victor's lie, thought he'd claw, back control, a crack in the COO's armor, but the night hid sharper blades. Hours stretched, the burner buzzing with calls, and Ellen Marsh answered, a board member Nathan trusted, her voice crisp through the static. "I'm with you, Nathan. Grayson's a snake," she said, her tone fierce, promising leaks, damning emails proving Victor's bribes, his mob orchestration. Nathan's sharp eyes narrowed, hope flickering, a lifeline in her words. "Send them now," he barked, pacing, his burned thigh dragging. And Ellen delivered, files flooding Sarah's inbox. Victor's signature bold on payments to the cop, orders to neutralize Carter. Sarah grinned. "This is it. We've got him." Her fingers flying as she drafted a board motion, Nathan's ownership papers attached, a legal bomb to oust Victor and reclaim Horizon. The plan solidified, Nathan's chest lifting with a surge of triumph, believing he'd cornered the beast. Ellen's leaks were gold, a noose tightening around Victor's neck, and Sarah sent the packet, the board convening an emergency session, their screens lighting up with truth. Nathan slumped into a chair, his medical bag at his feet, his sharp eyes glinting with resolve. He'd rallied an ally, thought he'd flipped the script, a win to rebuild on, the mob's fire a fading nightmare. But the burner buzzed again, Ellen's voice crackling through, urgent, strained. "Nathan, something's off. Victor's on the line. They're voting now," she said, her tone shifting, a tremor he didn't catch. His stomach sank, dread pooling, as Sarah lunged for the phone. "What's happening?" The line cut, static swallowing Ellen's words, and Nathan's sharp eyes widened, his burned hand trembling as he stood, the room tilting. Minutes later, a news alert flashed on Sarah's laptop, Victor's silver-haired face filling the screen, his cold blue eyes piercing, a smirk twitching his lips. "Horizon Airways has removed Dr. Nathan Carter as majority owner," he announced, his voice smooth, lethal, due to irrefutable evidence of fraud and coercion. Nathan's breath caught, disbelief crashing over him as the screen cut to audio, his voice distorted, confessing, "I faked it all, the hospital, the airline, all a lie." Sarah cursed, "That's doctored, he's framing you again." But the board's vote flashed, unanimous, his shell company dissolved, his ownership stripped in a heartbeat. Nathan's head spun, his victory ashes in his mouth, as tires screeched. Outside, red and blue lights flooding the alley, cops swarming the safe house like locusts. "Ellen!" he roared, his voice raw, cutting, piecing it together, her tremor a betrayal unveiled. Sarah lunged for the door. "She's Victor's." "Damn it!" But it crashed open. A dozen officers in riot gear storming in, their boots pounding the concrete, tasers buzzing. "Nathan Carter, you're under arrest." A beefy cop with a shaved head barked, his badge glinting as he tackled Nathan, slamming him to the floor, his burned thigh screaming as the desk toppled, papers scattering. Sarah shouted, "This is illegal. We've got proof." But a second cop tasered her, volts crackling, her body crumpling as Nathan's wrists snapped back into cuffs, the steel biting deeper than ever. The beefy cop yanked him up, his sharp eyes locking onto the burner, smashed under a boot, Ellen's leaks gone, Victor's audio a guillotine. "Fraud, coercion, you're done," the cop growled, dragging Nathan outside, the rain soaking his singed suit anew, cameras flashing from news vans, X lighting up with Carter collapses, a fresh wave of hate crashing over him. Victor's voice crackled through a cop's radio. "Told you, Carter, you're finished." A gloat that cut deeper than the taser's sting, his silver-haired shadow flexing muscle. Nathan's head spun, his boardroom win a mirage. Ellen's. Double-cross a blade he hadn't seen. She'd been Victor's lover, a plant, feeding him lies, turning his counterstrike into a rout. Cops shoved him into a squad car, the door slamming shut, the cage a new prison, colder, tighter than Denver's. Sarah groaned on the floor, tasered but alive, her eyes blazing as she shouted, "I'll fight this," through the chaos. Nathan's sharp eyes locked onto the safe house, his last refuge fading as the car peeled away, the city a blur of rain and hate. Victor's face flashed on a billboard, smirking. Horizon cleaned. A lie so vast it swallowed Nathan's truth. He'd rallied Ellen, thought he'd won, a crack in Victor's machine. But she'd flipped it, turned his trust into chains, landing him back in jail. The mob's fire was nothing. This was annihilation, his airline, his life, ripped away by a traitor's hand. Nathan's chest heaved, his burned hand trembling against the cuffs, his forehead's gash throbbing as the precinct loomed. A concrete tomb. He'd beaten the cop's lie, thought he'd struck back, but Victor had outplayed him, turned his ally into a dagger, his victory into dust. The car rocked, the beefy cop muttering, "Big shots falling hard." His smirk a mirror of Victor's, and Nathan's hope flickered, dimming with every mile. Ellen's voice haunted him, her "I'm with you," a venomous lie, and Sarah's fight was a distant echo, drowned by the rain. He'd underestimated Victor's reach, thought his grit could shield him, but now he was bleeding, chained, and the game had shifted, a new trap snapping shut in the dark. Dr. Nathan Carter sat shackled in a grimy jail cell beneath the flicker of a buzzing fluorescent bulb, his singed black suit torn at the seams, his burned thigh pulsing beneath the charred fabric, a relentless scar of Karen Reynolds' coffee, assault. Blood trickled anew from his split lip, the gash on his forehead throbbing, reopened in the chaos of his arrest, while his wrists chafed under tight cuffs, red welts deepening with every twitch. His sharp brown eyes glinted with a mix of exhaustion and defiance, staring at the concrete wall scarred with scratches, the air thick with sweat and mildew. His medical bag was gone, confiscated, a lifeline ripped away, leaving him bare in this cage. The safe house betrayal still burned in his skull, Ellen Marsh's voice a venomous echo, Victor Grayson's silver-haired shadow orchestrating his fall. Nathan's chest heaved, his burned hand trembling against the steel. The courtroom went a ghost. Ellen's leaks a lie. He'd rallied her, thought he'd struck back, exposed Victor's bribes, but she'd flipped it, fed him to the board, stripped. His ownership landed him here. The precinct hummed with distant shouts, boots echoing on tile, and Nathan's mind raced, piecing it together. Sarah Klein was out there, tasered but alive, fighting for him, a faint hope in the dark. He'd beaten the fake charge, thought he'd claw back Horizon, but Victor's machine had roared, Ellen's double-cross a blade that cut deeper than cuffs. Now he sat, bleeding, plotting, when the cell door clanged open, two guards stepping in, their faces hard, eyes glinting with malice. The first guard, a lanky man with a pockmarked face, smirked, cracking his knuckles, his uniform stained with coffee. "Grayson says hi," he muttered, his voice low, venomous, as the second, a stocky brute with a shaved head, loomed behind, twirling a baton. Nathan's sharp eyes narrowed, his pulse spiking, Victor's reach sinking in, a fist already curling. In his gut, "I'm not your punching bag," he said, his voice raw, cutting, rising despite the cuffs. But the pockmarked guard laughed, a sharp, brittle sound, and swung, his fist crashing into Nathan's jaw, snapping his head back against the wall, blood spraying hot and coppery. The brute followed, his baton slamming Nathan's ribs, a crack echoing as pain exploded, stealing his breath. Nathan doubled over, his burned thigh screaming as he hit the concrete, the guard's boots pounding his sides, slurs flying. "Troublemaker," "fraud," each word a blow sharper than the baton. Blood pooled on the floor, his sharp eyes blurring, but he clawed at the ground, defiance burning through the haze. "You're done, Doc," the pockmarked guard hissed, stomping his burned hand, the blisters bursting under the heel, agony ripping, a grunt from Nathan's throat. The brute kicked his ribs again, another crack, and Nathan's vision dimmed, his chest heaving, Victor's smirk a ghost in the dark. He'd survived the mob, the fire, thought he'd endure. But this was annihilation, a beating ordered from above, breaking him bone by bone. The guards stepped back, panting, their boots slick with his blood, and Nathan lay curled, his burned hand trembling, his ribs jagged fire with every gasp. "Tell Grayson he'll pay," he rasped, his voice hoarse, cutting, spitting red onto the concrete, but they laughed, slamming the door. The clang a guillotine's fall. Hours dragged, pain his only clock, and Nathan's sharp eyes flickered, plotting through the haze. He'd lost Horizon, his home, his name, but Sarah was out there, a lifeline he clung to. He shifted, wincing, his burned thigh dragging when a janitor shuffled in, an older man with gray hair, his mop sloshing, his eyes darting with pity. "Rough night," he muttered, slipping a pen and napkin under the bunk, a crack in Victor's wall. Nathan lunged, his burned hand shaking as he scribbled, "Victor's hit, expose him," folding it tight, his sharp eyes locking onto the janitors. "Get this to Sarah Klein, lawyer. Harlem," he whispered, his voice raw, urgent, passing it back. A lifeline launched. The janitor nodded, pocketing it, and shuffled out, the door clanging shut, hope flickering in Nathan's chest. He'd sent a message, thought he'd turned the tide, a crack in the cage when dawn broke. The cell door swinging open again, the pockmarked guard back, his smirk gone. "You're out," he grunted, uncuffing Nathan, his wrists raw as he stood, ribs screaming, believing Sarah's fight had won. The precinct spat him onto wet streets, rain streaking his bloodied suit, and Sarah rushed up, her gray-streaked hair damp, her eyes blazing. "The expose hit, Nathan. Janitor got it to a journalist. Protests are everywhere," she said, her tone steel gripping his arm. X buzzed with Victor exposed, the cops' tape, Ellen's betrayal, a tide turning, crowds chanting "Free Dr. Carter" outside Horizon's towers. Nathan's chest lifted, his sharp eyes glinting with triumph, hobbling beside her, his burned thigh dragging, thinking he'd won, a victory snatched from the dark. "We've got him," he rasped, his voice hoarse, cutting, boarding a cab with Sarah, the precinct fading, freedom sharp and sweet. But the cab rolled 2 blocks, rain pounding the roof, when a blast rocked the street, a fireball erupting from the car's hood, glass shattering inward, flames licking Nathan's face. His sharp eyes widened, his burned hand shielding Sarah. As the cab flipped, metal screaming, crashing onto its side, smoke choking the air. Nathan's ribs flared, blood gushing from his forehead, his burned thigh pinned under twisted steel, pain swallowing him whole. Sarah groaned, alive but dazed as tires screeched, a black SUV peeling away, Victor's silver hair glinting through the tinted window, his cold blue eyes locking onto Nathan's, a smirk promising death. "You're finished," his voice echoed, a radio crackle from the wreckage, cutting deeper than the blast. Nathan clawed at the seat, his burned hand trembling, dragging himself free, glass slicing his palms, his sharp eyes blurring as he pulled Sarah out, rain mixing with blood on the asphalt. Bystanders screamed, phones filming, sirens wailing distant. But Nathan's head spun, his courtroom win, his expose, a mirage. He'd beaten the jail, thought he'd struck back, a crack in Victor's machine, but Grayson had flipped it, turned his freedom into a death trap, a bomb that dwarfed the mob's fire. "He wants me dead," Nathan rasped, his voice raw, cutting, collapsing beside Sarah, his burned thigh useless, his ribs jagged knives with every breath. Victor's SUV vanished, a ghost in the rain, and Nathan's hope flickered, dimming with the flames. The street blurred, paramedics rushing in, their voices a distant hum as Nathan lay, blood pooling, his sharp eyes locked on the sky, plotting through the haze. He'd sent the message, turned the public, thought he'd won, but Victor's endgame was murder, a strike so vast it swallowed his triumph. Sarah gripped his hand, her eyes fierce. "We'll fight," she whispered, but the blast's roar drowned her, Victor's smirk a shadow in the smoke. He'd underestimated Grayson's ruthlessness, thought his grit could shield him, but now he was bleeding, broken, and the game had shifted, a new war igniting on the edge of death. Dr. Nathan Carter lay sprawled on the rain-slicked asphalt of a New York street, his bloodied black suit charred and shredded, his burned thigh pinned beneath the twisted wreckage of the bombed cab, a searing echo of Karen Reynolds's coffee. Assault. Blood gushed from his reopened forehead gash, mingling with the rain, while his split lip oozed anew, his ribs jagged fire with every shallow breath. His wrists, raw from cuffs, trembled as his burned hand clutched Sarah Klein's arm, her gray-streaked hair plastered to her face, her eyes fierce despite the blast's daze. The fireball's heat still licked the air, smoke choking his lungs, Victor Grayson's silver-haired silhouette fading in the black SUV, his cold blue eyes a death promise etched in Nathan's skull. Sirens wailed, paramedics rushing in, but Nathan's sharp brown eyes stared skyward, plodding through the haze, his body broken but his mind ablade. Sarah groaned beside him, alive, her voice rasping. "Stay with me, Nathan. We'll get him." As medics swarmed, their hands lifting, him onto a stretcher, his burned thigh screaming, his ribs grinding with every jolt. The stretcher rolled, the city blurring, and Nathan's chest heaved. His courtroom win, his expose, his freedom, all ashes in the blast. He'd beaten the jail, turned the public, thought he'd struck back, but Victor's bomb had flipped. A murderous strike that dwarfed the mob's fire, aiming to erase him. "He thinks I'm dead," Nathan muttered, his voice hoarse, cutting, a spark igniting in his gut as the ambulance doors slammed, the wail swallowing Sarah's shout. "We'll fight!" His sharp eyes flickered, a plan forming, a crack in Victor's victory. Days vanished into a fog of painkillers and bandages, Nathan vanishing too, slipping from the hospital under Sarah's watch, his death a whispered rumor on X. Carter, killed in blast, was Horizon winds trending black and cold. He hid in a rundown motel on the city's edge, his burned thigh wrapped tight, his ribs bound, his sharp eyes glinting through a cracked mirror, scars tracing his face like a map of war. Sarah worked the shadows, her burner phone buzzing, rallying loyal board members, buying time while Nathan moved unseen, his medical bag traded for a laptop, his burned hand typing fast. He'd lost Horizon, his home, his name. Thought he'd hit bottom, but Victor's bomb was his misstep, a crack Nathan would widen, a reversal brewing in the dark. Months stretched, Horizon stock soaring, Victor's victory party lighting up a Manhattan penthouse, his silver hair gleaming under chandeliers, his cold blue eyes glinting as he toasted, "Carter's gone, we're clean." Executives clapped, their suits crisp, champagne flowing, X buzzing with Grayson saves Airline, a lie so vast it swallowed the truth. Nathan watched from a grainy live feed, his burned hand trembling, his sharp eyes narrowing, plodding through the pain. He'd vanished, let Victor think he'd won. A ghost in the machine, buying shares through proxies, his shell company reborn under new names, a silent tide reclaiming what was his. Sarah grinned beside him, her gray-streaked hair tied back. "You've got 52%, Nathan, he's blind." Her voice steel, handing him forged IDs, a new face for the final strike. The press conference loomed, Horizon's quarterly triumph, Victor's stage to cement his reign, and Nathan moved, his burned thigh limping but steady, his black suit traded for a gray hoodie, blending into the crowd. The ballroom buzzed, reporters, scribbling, cameras rolling, Victor at the podium, his smirk ablade. Horizon stronger than ever, no shadows remain. Nathan's sharp eyes glinted from the back, his burned hand clutching ownership papers, notarized anew, a bombshell ticking in his pocket. He'd lost everything, thought he'd died, but he'd flipped it, bought out Victor's allies in secret, a reversal so vast it dwarfed the bomb's roar. He stepped forward, hood falling, his scarred face stark under the lights, gasps rippling as Victor's cold blue eyes widened, his champagne flute shattering on the floor. "Victor Grayson, you're fired," Nathan said, his voice raw, cutting, booming through the mic as he slammed the papers down, ownership bold in black ink, 52% his, undeniable. The room erupted, reporters shouting, cameras flashing, Victor's smirk collapsing into a snarl. "You're dead." Nathan's sharp eyes locked onto his, defiance burning through the scars. "Not yet," he rasped, pulling a USB from his pocket. Sarah plugging it in, screens flaring with Ellen's emails, the cops' tape, Victor's bomb order, a tidal wave of proof drowning his lies. "I own Horizon, and you're done, Nathan," roared, his burned hand steady, pointing as security swarmed, cuffing Victor, his silver hair wild as he screamed, "This isn't over!" Karen Reynolds flashed on X, arrested for perjury, her blonde bun unraveling in a mugshot, her lies crumbling under Nathan's truth. Victor thrashed, cops dragging him out, his cold blue eyes blazing with hate. A titan felled, his machine shattered. Nathan stood tall, his burned thigh trembling, his ribs aching. addressing the crowd. Horizon's corrupt core ends today. Justice starts now. His voice hoarse, cutting, a vow etched in blood and ash. Reporters surged, questions flying, but Nathan's sharp eyes glinted with triumph, his scarred face a testament, turning to Sarah. "We did it." Her nod fierce, a crack in the night healed. He'd vanished, thought he'd lost, but flipped it. A reversal that rewrote the war, reclaiming his airline, his life. The ballroom emptied, Victor's screams fading, and Nathan limped outside, the rain gone. The city's neon glow soft against his scars. His burned hand clutched the papers, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Horizon Airways his again, a phoenix from the blast. He'd beaten the mob, the fire, the bomb, thought he'd died, but struck back. A surgeon's precision, slicing Victor's throat. The world buzzed, X shifting. Carter rises, a tide turning, and Nathan's chest heaved, his burned thigh steadying, his ribs a dull ache, a victory hard won. He'd underestimated Victor's ruthlessness, thought his grit could shield him, but now he stood, scarred but unbowed. A vow to dismantle the hate, a new dawn breaking over the wreckage. The saga of Dr. Nathan Carter is a brutal yet inspiring lesson in resilience, systemic bias, and the cost of unchecked prejudice. First, it exposes how snap judgments, like Karen's assumption Nathan didn't belong in first class, can spiral into devastating injustice, fueled by racism and power. Her actions, backed by Victor Grayson's ruthless machine, show how deeply entrenched biases can weaponize entire systems against one person, from a flight crew to a mob, cops, and media. Nathan's journey teaches us that silence isn't safety. His initial restraint, while noble, couldn't shield him from escalating attacks, proving that confronting hate head-on is often the only way to survive it. Second, it underscores the power of perseverance. Nathan lost his home, his airline, nearly his life, but clawed back through cunning and grit, turning Victor's bomb into his own triumph. It's a stark reminder that justice isn't handed out. It's fought for, often at a steep price. Finally, the story reveals the fragility of truth in a world quick to swallow lies. Victor's smears nearly buried Nathan, showing how fast public perception can flip without scrutiny. For us, it's a call to question narratives, dig deeper, and stand firm against hate no matter the odds. So, what do you take from Nathan's fight? How would you face a system rigged against you? Quietly endure or fiercely resist? Drop your thoughts below, hit like if this tale fired you up, and subscribe for more raw, real stories. Share this with anyone who needs a spark to keep pushing. Thanks for riding this roller coaster with us. Here's to courage, truth, and a world where justice prevails.